Mr. President, the U.S. Treasury is scheduled to borrow over $1.4 trillion this year, and we have a scheduled interest payment of over $220 billion. We will pay more in interest this year than we do for the cost of the United States Army. I am very concerned about this situation and also an underreported financial situation developing in American states. The situation in my home state of Illinois and the state of California is the most dire. I would regret any attempt by these states to seek a federal bailout to defend the full faith and credit of the United States. I think that we should move forward with a resolution that I introduced with a number of other senators, S-Res 188, that expresses the sense of the Senate that we should have no federal bailout for the states. This is an issue that has concerned the Senate once before. In the 1840s, we faced a funding crisis of the states. The United States Senate wisely advised then Secretary of Treasury Daniel Webster to seek or report on any discussions that he might have had that could have led to guaranteeing state debt. It was the Senate's expressed resolution that prevented Treasury Secretary Webster from bailing out the states then. The crisis at the time was even reflected in Charles Dickens' famous book, A Christmas Carol, in which Scrooge was described as someone who was less than wealthy because he had overinvested in what were called United States sovereigns. In fact, the phrase in the Christmas Carol is not worth a United States sovereign because of the spendthrift policies of many state governments at the time. The U.S. Senate at that time took the correct action to prevent the spendthrift actions of several states from contaminating and ruining the credit rating of the United States itself. Our credit rating is already under stress, with reports especially by Standard & Poor's that we may face a loss in the AAA credit rating invented to symbolize the strength of the United States if we don't change a spending course soon. A way to accelerate that loss of a AAA credit rating is to guarantee or somehow bail out spendthrift states like Illinois or California. In Illinois, we have a very courageous state treasurer who just took office and made a clear statement. Treasurer Dan Rutherford has told the leaders of my own state that they need to stop borrowing, that they need to stop spending, and he is seeking no federal bailout for his state. The state situation is quite dire. By one estimate, the revenues and pensions of the state of Illinois are the worst funded in America. Less than 40% of the pensions, by one estimate, have been funded. With this type of track record, you could see a situation in which California or Illinois, in a crisis, would seek a bailout from the Senate and from the House. I think we should repeat the wise precedent set in the 1840s, the advice that we sent to Treasury Secretary Daniel Webster to set a clear marker for our own Treasury Secretary to make sure that there is no bailout for the states. To protect our credit rating, I think this action is necessary, especially to reassure the credit rating agencies. And what would happen if we don't? Could we provide temporary benefits to Illinois and California? We could. Could we underwrite their policies of spendthrift ways? We could. Would we accelerate a loss of the AAA credit rating of the United States? We could. We're already seeing an example of what happens when you drive your national economy off a cliff. Many of us originally hail from, our longtime ancestors and past, from Ireland. And recently, the Irish government finances collapsed as they lost their credit rating. Because interest rates spiked in that country so fast, 53% of mortgages in Ireland were foreclosed in a short space of time after the loss of their credit rating. We need to act to protect the people of the United States from such an economic fate. That's why we need to say no to any state bailouts, why we need to cut spending here in Washington, and why we need to make sure that at all costs we defend the credit rating of the United States. It's our sacred duty here to make sure that what is befalling the people of Greece and the people of Portugal and the people of Ireland, being misruled by governments that said yes to every special interest spending idea and no to their economic future, does not infect the credit rating of the United States. That's why this resolution is needed, and that's why I'm so proud to introduce it today in the full and complete historic financial tradition of the United States Senate. And with that, Mr. President, I yield back.